Hello and welcome, Nico and Alba. I'm very happy to have both of you here. Both of you are excellent ocean scientists and excellent artists as well. This to me is, of course, super interesting because for a few weeks I've already been thinking about this question, how art and natural science seem to be like super related. And this seems to be something that comes up a lot, that especially people in, well, natural sciences also seem to like to draw or paint. And this is something I actually wanted to, yeah, figure out a bit more. So I'm happy both of you could take the time to be here. Both of you are actually artists, as far as I can see, and scientists as well. So um, do both of you paint, just paint? Do you do something else? I mean, Alba, maybe we start with you. Like, what exactly do you do, and what exactly do you do as an artist and as a scientist?
Well, as a scientist, I've been changing topics, but always interested in the inside the oceanography topic, especially when you are connecting physics with chemistry and biology, not just focusing in one specific topic. And that's what is super amazing about oceanography. But then I've been painting since I was a child, I would say. But it's true that the ocean and generally like nature has always inspired me in many ways. Like so I've been like painting mainly, but also taking pictures and recording specific processes just to learn and also to show other people.
And you, Nico, like you are also a scientist. Both of you have been scientists for Project Cusco as well. So what about you? Like, what's your main focus when it comes to oceanography, or what is your main focus when it comes to being an artist?
In my scientific career so far, I've been more focused in ecology, but it's always interesting to have a holistic understanding of what's going on, because in the end, everything is super interconnected. And I think that this is especially obvious when you look at the Humboldt system, right? So it's super fascinating. And yeah, right now I'm more interested, or my research interests are more in the line of climate change mitigation. So I'm looking at the potential ecosystem effects of ocean alkalinity enhancement, which is one of these climate intervention technologies that have been proposed to take up CO2 from the atmosphere and fight climate change. But of course, what that can mean for natural ecosystems, we don't know. So that's kind of where I step in within that project. And I don't know, as an artist, so like Alba, I was always drawing and painting as a child. And I just remember like my family would take me out to dinners, and in Spain you have like these paper tablecloths, let's say, that are just a one-use thing. And for me to be entertained, they would just ask the waiter for a pen, and I would just be painting with my aunt the whole night or drawing things. And it was always, I don't know why, it was always something ocean related, like mermaids, fish, crabs, stuff like that. Um, and then for a while I totally dropped art, and I was focused on school, on university, and so on. And it was actually right before coming back to Kiel that I took up art again, and I started painting again. And actually Alba was the one that introduced me to watercolors. We were both doing the masters in oceanography, and that first year we started painting together. And watercolors are super portable. You don't need to prepare. You can just take them out anywhere. They require the least sort of logistics of any other medium like acrylic or oil. So they're just super handy to take on trips and everything. And yeah, ever since then, it was the watercolors. And other things, like Alba was saying, I'm also into photography, and especially film photography, so analog. And I also have been experimenting with like the development process and so on, which is super interesting and beautiful. And yeah, in the end, it's just, I also am into journalism, like writing things down as I go. And in the end, like art, painting, photography, writing, they're all ways of just, they make it easier for me to understand like what's going on around me and how I feel about things, or interesting things that I don't want to forget, or beautiful things that I come across and I want to keep in my mind 5 years from now. So yeah, that's more or less my background.
Yeah, that's such a cute story, especially with the little mermaids, and now you
Yeah.
being an oceanographer. That's of course really sweet. I've seen pictures from both of you, and I have to say, like, you both seem to like to paint these amazing animals, right? So to me, it seems a bit like also this idea of studying nature kind of found its influence in your paintings as well. And now my question is, of course, whether you have some sort of like a favorite subject. Is this something that like appeals most to you in a way?
I think it's a quite fun question, and the answer even more, because for some reason Nico and I really like to paint the same, and I'm still wondering why. So we love painting fish and we love painting birds, and that's why in Peru for us, we were there in different periods of the Cusco experiments, and we both were just so amazed because you just have both things in so many species of birds, so many species of fish, because what Nico just said is such a productive system. So everything is just super impressive in Peru. So that's very fun because, yeah, for some reason, fish, it's one of the most, it's the main subject I've been painting, and then birds. I don't know the reason. I think once you start painting, it's something, how to say, it's a specific object. So the limits are inside this species or this animal. Once we try to do landscapes, we always went into like craziness, and we sometimes have like, this is so difficult, but that's what we are trying to do now. We just meet regularly and we talk about different topics that we learn, and then we try to paint together to keep learning some techniques, because indeed what Nico said, like watercolors are super handy, but actually they are really hard technique. I mean, that's what the people is saying to us. I don't know, what do you think, Nico? But I think that's it.
Yeah, I have to agree with Alba. Like for me, it's exactly the same. Totally into painting fish and birds, All like, I don't know. It just started like that.
Yeah.
Actually, when I retook drawing after that big break, let's say, I was painting a lot of landscapes just because that was what was interesting to me. So I started painting again when I did this long hike in northern Spain. Maybe you've heard about it, called El Camino de Santiago.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah, I mean
the way,
that's I think quite famous. Yeah.
it's quite famous, exactly. And there for me, it was about the landscapes. And I would just sit down and I would draw with a pencil in my journal something. And after that, I mean, in the end, it's what's capturing your attention and your interest, right? So as an oceanographer or a marine biologist or a naturalist, even like Alba, I think, is the same as me in this sense. We are very intrigued by nature and by natural subjects. And I think that's why we gravitate towards these animals like birds, fish. And I feel like in different ways, I think Alba was much more versed in birds before, and I was a bit more into fish. And we know how diverse and how fascinating they are, and how many shapes and colors. And I mean, some people are painting fantastic things that don't exist, and I feel like there's so much magic already in nature itself that you don't need to make these creatures up. You know, they already exist. And I find it so cool to try. For me, it's a way, as I said, of understanding the animal. So once I've painted it, I feel like there's a connection, you know, like something different. If I don't paint it, I feel like, okay, I know this fish or whatever, but I haven't really integrated it, you know? And after doing that, it's like it requires some observation, some understanding, and then it's in my mind.
Yeah,
So
well,
I think that's the reason. They just they're the things that fascinate me, and that's why I paint them. But as Alba said, we're also I mean, it's super fun. Painting above all is about having fun, I think. So we are meeting regularly on Mondays and trying to get out of our comfort zone and do something completely different, like people, shapes, abstract skies, for example, or ocean landscapes or whatever. And I think that's part of the creative process. When you get out of your comfort zone, then also magical things can take place.
Well, it sounds like something that all of us should do in a way, like getting out of our comfort zones and pushing the boundaries and just like widening up basically how we see things. I think that always makes sense. And maybe this is especially something that makes sense for science. And therefore, my follow-up is, would you say that being an artist somehow is beneficial also for you being a scientist?
Well, that's an interesting question. And I was thinking, oh, maybe it's something I have to think about. I never thought about that before, indeed. I don't know if it's helping, but definitely it helps, as Nico said, to learn. So you learn about the organisms, you learn about something because you are taking some time to study it, and then you reflect it in your own way. But also, if you use it as in a proper tool, it's benefiting the scientist person, because you are sharing something, either because you do a very nice representation of something that doesn't exist by itself, or just because you do something super artistic or super emotive to someone that will just capture you will just capture the attention of that person, and then you can tell the story, or you can tell your result. It's like a vector to kind of capture other people that maybe it's not in the first instance interested in your research or in science. So definitely is a super powerful tool, which I think it's really approaching, to become a better scientist if you use it. And there's many, many different ways to use art in that way.
So you'd say it also makes it easier for people who are not scientists to sort of get a connection to the world of science by
Yes,
entering through this, let's say, door of art.
totally. Because it's like not just students or someone that don't understand, but maybe people who don't want to know anything about your topic. Maybe you do something which is completely abstract or wherever, and then afterwards you can talk with them, because otherwise maybe these people it's not target at all. So I think it's super interesting.
Yeah, I have to agree with Alba. I think like the most direct way in which your science can benefit from, being artistic in one way or another is in the communication and in getting through to people. Because it just may bring the attention to something that the other person never thought about, or show beauty in something they never thought could be beautiful. Like, I think until I actually painted a herring or I actually painted a cod, I personally never thought that a fish like that could be seen as beautiful, But you
Yeah.
need to look closely into it, and then you see like they're almost as colorful as a tropical fish, because there's so many different colors and hues and everything. It's insane iridescence. So that's the direct way. And I think as to myself, like in my science, it's beneficial in the way that's how my mind works, so I have a more, let's say, graphical or schematic mind. So I try to use these tools in order to understand maybe complicated processes happening, or organizing, my topic or my project, and thinking about it in a more systematic way. And I use these more graphical tools to do so. Maybe I don't do a watercolor painting of it, but every time, because that wouldn't be helpful, but I definitely benefit from it. And it would be, but I guess there's so many different kinds of minds. So it would be I guess each person has their own tricks, and not necessarily being more visually artistic is better than other types of creativity or ways of thinking, or ways that the mind work. I don't know.
For me, it was very amazing in the other Cosmos experiment we were doing in the Canaries, when Nico and I discovered how incredibly beautiful were, for instance, copepods, because we always saw these like preserved samples, which they are just brown and degrading bodies. And then suddenly we saw, oh my God, these guys are full of colors, full of light. So we were just staying every night for hours trying to capture such images. And in that case, besides painting, we were also just playing with light, with photography, and to videos. And then I remember I showed all these like planktonic creatures to my great grandmothers and aunts, and they were like, what is this? And they were just so happy, and they wanted to know more about all these guys. And I was like, yeah, plankton is so beautiful, and many people don't even know. They think they are green dots, So that was super nice.
And those that thing that captures your imagination, let's say like the colors, right, in those copepods, or the shapes, the structures that makes us think of them as beautiful, they actually have a function. They're there for a reason. And it's because we are interested in those things that we then learn, okay, this copepod is this colorful because that's how it attracts a mate, or this copepod has these structures in the tail because that's how it senses the environment around it, you know? And unless you're paying attention to those details, they're all just fish food, you know, as we like to say in the group, because that's the only function they have according to many scientists. But I think it's more the romantic old way of seeing science, you know, and scientists like in the days of Darwin or Haeckel or whatever. Yeah.
I think one also has that with birds. They're so like beautiful and colorful, and then in the end, what stands behind it is, yeah, they want to attract a mate. But you know,
Exactly.
if you don't think about it, they are just so beautiful.
Yeah, totally. They're like little jewels. It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah, which is why I also appreciate a lot that both of you actually like to paint birds, because I feel like fish and birds may be alike in that sense that one is sort of the bird of the water and the other one is the fish of the air in a way, you know, if you
That's
get what I mean.
that's an interesting. I've never heard that comparison, but I like it.
I just made it up. But why not, you know?
Sure.
They're just free animals. I think that's why.
Yeah.
I mean, as Alba said, like birds, for example, in Peru, like when I was in the project Cusco, all the illustrations that I made were of birds, and it's just because it's an insane place for seeing birds. There's just so much diversity, and
Yeah.
all of that is stemming from the production in the ocean. You know what I mean? So that's why I was so amazed by it, and that's why I was painting it, because at that point, that's what fascinated me. And you learn so much of how they feed, how they live, how everything, like their strategies to survive, just from looking at the way their body morphology, their plumage, everything. It's, yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
And
they
then you
talk,
make your guesses as well.
yeah, they talk so much about if you're in any like oceanographic cruise and suddenly you are super for a long time in an oligotrophic area and suddenly you start seeing birds, you know, the system is changing. So no one else is checking for that, but since you are like really all the day looking for birds because it's something too excited for us, then you know, well, maybe we have some islands close, or maybe, yeah, there is right now more productivity in this region. So it's always like a hint that helps you to understand the whole system behind. So it's super nice. Yes.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Also, Nico, you just said when you were in Peru with Project Cusco, I actually saw a painting that you made from one of these scientific structures called mesocosms, and these are like these giant test tubes that one can put in the ocean and just sort of manipulate the conditions inside by adding things, for example, or yeah, like changing things inside. And on the outside, it's still surrounded by the natural environment, which would be the ocean, right? And you painted that and also painted animals that would be inside, so like phytoplankton and zooplankton, for example. And that led me to think that somehow the science for both of you is in a way creative path, that both of you actually have the science, and it strongly influences the art, but also the art strongly influences the science, and it seems to be so connected for both of you. And that's something that I've never thought about. I always figured artists would be sort of these, you know, people living in their ateliers and just like painting from hand, like stuff and life and whatever. And then here come both of you, and it seems to be so connected. And I wonder, what do you think? Where does this connection come from, that natural sciences seem to be so connected to this creativity?
As Nico said before, it's very interesting because if you check the old naturalists, they have these amazing books and they had to paint everything because they didn't have any other way of representing what they found. And many times when you do a trip or an experiment and you actually want to do that because it's just so amazing, and once you try it, you see how much you learn when you are representing something that you are interested, and you realize actually the great work they did because it actually takes forever. So right now with we don't have that much time, so you also take advantage of technology, or you just combine or you retain all what you want to paint because it's just you see something, it's going to your body, it's exciting you. If you can, you will do it the same afternoon, but sometimes we do it months later. It's just staying there. But I think it really comes from there. I don't know if you want to add something, Nico, but
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I really appreciate that, and Christine, that you're saying like that we're artists. I guess, you know, of course, in a way we are, but, you know, we both, I think I'm going to speak for myself now, but I don't have an artistic pressure. You know what I mean? Like my job is science, and art is a way of, it's the way that I communicate, you know, through that process and through that creativity, and I do it for myself. So for example, like what these scientists were doing that Alba was mentioning before, um, they were doing scientific illustrations. They had to measure everything. Everything had to be according to proportion, etc., etc. For me, I don't have that pressure because it's just about me doing it first because I enjoy it, and second, to have an interpretation and sort of try to capture that moment in life, you know. And then if that can be used in outreach, in communication, in attracting, you know, the attention to a particular topic because it attracted my attention at a particular time to that topic, then it's great. But I just want to make like that little point to say, like, sure, we are artists the same as I believe that someone that plays the guitar for themselves at home is a musician, but I don't live thanks, like I don't get paid, or my main source of income is not the art. So I don't have that pressure, which I think is a big thing for many artists. So that's why I don't want to sort of speak for them, because I'm sure that for other people it's a different process. And for me, what you were saying, it's absolutely, it's a double-way street, let's say, like the science and the art. I think it's just a feedback loop. And it's, as I said, it's the way that I communicate and I understand. So I don't, I my art, of course, is going to reflect the science because the science is such a big part of my life at the moment. And the opportunities that it has opened up, like going to Peru, for example, and seeing this whole other part of the world and being introduced to this incredible ecosystem, of course, I want to paint it in some way or another, you know? And I think that's why it is. And then on the other hand, somehow we are a bit good at art or at painting, and then people kind of pick up on it and say, well, this is not such a bad way of communicating what we want to what we want to tell, to a different target audience than maybe a scientific or audience alone, like a paper or a scientific paper would do, more maybe for schools, for wider society or whatever. And then, you know, they say, can we use these illustrations? Can you do like a mesocosm? Or using it for my own projects, like for my thesis or whatever. And I think that's how it worked for me, at least.
Both of you have Instagram accounts, and both of you show your art as well, your paintings on Instagram or your photos, depending on what you feel like posting. Whether that, well, I mean, as Alba already mentioned, this makes it more easy for people who are not scientists to enter this world as well. So I totally see why that makes so much sense. But I wonder whether you as scientists also get somewhat more range or more outreach for your science, for your actual science through that.
So it's complicated. The thing is, I definitely sometimes try to do that. The thing is that I don't have a huge like following or anything like that. It's true that the people that, you know, I interact with in my platform, I do interact quite intensively because I exchange with them and so on. I'm usually trying to talk with other illustrators, with other artists or scientists, or like people that I find are very interesting and are doing things that inspire me. And in that sense, it's really cool because I feel there is an exchange, and they read the posts that I make and they ask questions and so on. And in that sense, I feel like, wow, this goes through, but maybe it goes through to 10 people, let's say. I'm a bit conflicted with, so I mean, for widespread, you know, exposure, definitely not for me, at least. It's a way to communicate exactly to friends, to family. But I also sometimes question, like, whether Instagram, for example, or social media at large are really the way, you know, to communicate the science, even through illustrations. Like as artists, I feel many actual artists are so frustrated because, you know, painting is such a personal process, and you put so much of your soul or your mind and heart into it, and in the end, realistically speaking, someone that's scrolling through Instagram is going to see the picture and their attention span is 2 seconds. So something that maybe you've spent hours doing that you really love, the people are just going to scroll through it and in 2 seconds decide I like it or I don't like it, and then it's lost forever, you know? And sometimes, like in some, I wonder, like some of my drawings, I then put a text accompanying it, like saying, oh, this is part of, I painted it while working on this project, which is, you know, interested in researching this or that question, which are important because of blah, blah. I'm not even saying that I write a huge text, but maybe a paragraph. And I really doubt that many people will spend the time to read the story behind the picture. And then I wonder, does this really create such an impact? So I'm a bit conflicted in that sense. But with the people that I do exchange with, I definitely see that there is a positive response in terms of they learn something that they didn't know before, or they are exposed to a question or a field or a problem or an issue that they hadn't thought about until then. And that's already rewarding enough. I mean, if you're on social media, you should do it for yourself. That's a given. Never try to find sort of how do you say, positive reinforcement from the outside. That should come from within always.
Yeah, wise words. Alba, how do you see that? Like, does your science somehow benefit from you doing art and posting it on your Instagram channel?
Well, that's what I think the problem that Nico just pointed out is more about the society. So it's not a problem or a benefit that if what you are posting is good or not. It's just that people, you know, it's acting in a very weird and fast way, and that's definitely a problem for many other things. But I'm sure. I mean, in the last days, I haven't not been posting many art in my Instagram, but I always get actually quite many reactions from people. It's true that a lot of the people who is following me will be family and friends, but they are still really not into this marine or scientific group at all. Like maybe, yeah, I don't know, 80% of the people is really not into that, and they are always interested. But it's true that maybe they don't never will go deeply, but at least they know it's there. And what is really nice is that if they have some question, if they have some news, something that they think about that, because they know you are still active in the research with marine, they will always contact you back, and that's already something very nice. And you can always see by the reaction of the people who like it or not, who could, like, I don't know, help on that. But it's true that maybe it will be beautiful. I mean, we've been thinking about that with Nico sometimes, to think about some bigger event we could do, like a whole exposition, something, sometimes trying to do a different use a different platform, use a different way to communicate, and do it like in a bigger way to try to impact a bit more. But I have to say that generally I think it's quite nice. And you could also try to use the Instagram in a way that you really start following more people just for that purpose. But I think because we are sharing our lives and our art and our science together, maybe the targets that we are reaching is not as reactive, maybe.
Maybe it's more mixed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the idea of doing an exposition actually is so nice. It would be so nice to have an exposition, science and art, and then maybe, I don't know, maybe this even is something you'd get in contact with other scientists who also do art, because I feel like there's so many scientists who are artists as well. And it really seems to be so closely connected that, to me, this is such an interesting topic.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just about finding a medium that I think requires, at least to a certain degree, an active participation from the person that's receiving that information or that's seeing the art. Because I don't think people pay more or less attention to your art depending on whether it's, you know, this painting was a bit better than the one from 1 week ago or whatever. If they were in person with you, or if it was a part of a bigger project, I'm sure they would appreciate it. It's just that Instagram or Twitter, maybe Twitter for ideas, not so much for paintings, but I don't know if they're really the best way to put a message across or to generate involvement from your audience. And in that sense, like an exhibition, or, you know, a book, or going to a school and talking with the kids, or, you know, even putting up like a little stand on the fjord of information, and people come to you and ask, I think that already has a bigger impact. Of course, there's channels on Instagram, professional channels and whatever, that do have that widespread impact. I'm talking at our sort of level, Alba and mine.
But yeah, I think like combining art from different disciplines, it's also super interesting, and especially artists which are really working on this process already, like how to reach people, and then you just combine this science, this marine science art with them, and then you can do a big thing. Like, I mean, it's exciting, and I think at some point it's going to happen. We are going to try something, hopefully.
Yeah, it's a great idea, and I totally agree that this is something you should definitely push, because I'd love to see it. I'd be the first one to come and see it. Something I've been wondering, because both of you, in my opinion, are pretty good. I mean, that's of course me, who knows, like, I don't know if I'm the best judge for that, but to me, it seems like both of you are quite advanced in what you do. And now I wonder, do you do courses? I mean, you already said you have your meetings, but besides that?
So for me, it was
Pure talent.
self-taught. No, not that, definitely not at all, because everything, I think, of course, there has to be some kind of interest to do it. That's the most important thing, the motivation, and that it brings you joy. Like, don't force yourself to do something that you're not happy doing. And then with that, it's just practice, you know, and experience, and slowly you get better and you get more comfortable. As Alba said, aquarelle, of course, it's very handy, very portable, but it's also a very complicated medium to work with, because you don't have space to correct your mistakes. You know, what's done is done.
Yeah.
And there are many happy mistakes that make the artwork incredibly better. Like, I try to not be controlled when I'm painting, because I feel that sort of, that the way, like, let the water run free, and then you have effects that are impossible to do again, you know, because they're just luck, or they just so happen to do that because the paper was tilted in a way, because you put this much water or this much pigment or whatever. But yeah, it's a matter of practice. For me, I didn't do any course, and then exchanging with people like Alba and seeing what other artists are doing, and you know, experimenting.
Yeah, I totally agree with Nico. For me, it was the same. I was painting, and like I could personally say it was really cool when I meet Nico. It was so incredible to see how he changed his style through like just 4 months, starting trying everything, and then slowly he realized, okay, I'm finding my style, because style is going to be changing forever. But you see how he was just improving super fast, and it was super beautiful to see, and that's what I really like. And that's also super interesting in watercolors, what Nico just pointed, that it's just so magical, and slowly sometimes you do something by mistake and it's incredible, and then you try to do it next time, maybe it doesn't work, but slowly you really get some little tricks that work for each for each one. And I don't know, it's super nice. And also when you choose to do like a type of landscape or a type of fish, you really learn it, and maybe like the next day you could even do it by memory. It's incredible how everything, it's retained in your brain once, because you observe so much, you try to find out what is the shape, what is the structure, and it's incredible like how easier is the next time. And then slowly you have a huge library of things you've done before, or how to do the sea. The first day you do a simple sea and it works, but then you try to do a rough sea and it's a complete disaster. But slowly you got into that, and that's super nice. And what I really like to do is also to meet with people that they never paint before. Since you always have your watercolors in your backpack or in your normal bag, you just put them there, and people is just super scared, like, "Oh, I've never painted before, no way." And then you just teach them like 3 little tricks, and it's so beautiful to see how they enjoy, and they realize that, oh, I actually doing something. And the next day they will paint again, and they tell you, well, I was painting again, and this was super nice experience. So yeah, I think.
But you have to know that Alba, I mean, Alba is a creative force. So she's
the muse. She's the muse.
definitely,
the
I would
others the
definitely,
kiss, basically.
I really think that she inspires a lot of people everywhere she goes, because it's really like, it's, you know, when you surround yourself with people that are fearless in that sense, like they're just not even pushing you, it's just you see that sort of energy and you aspire to be more like that, you know. So you get up, you say, I'm not gonna be afraid of making mistakes, or that it looks this way or that way, and it's just, let's have fun doing it. And having someone that is that way, and on top of it is that way, and what she does is so good, because she has a talent with I'm never getting tired of telling her, like, she has an eye for color, for example. Like, every time that I'm painting with her, she has like this intuition to match different colors that look good together, or to mix pigments and come up with new colors that are exactly what you're seeing in the animal that you're trying to paint, you know, for example. And it's yeah, it's super. I mean, I think that's the reason that I also moved forward quite a bit after retaking painting, was that I was going by the hand of someone that was such a force in the field, you know?
So beautiful.
In a way, my cliche is a bit that scientists are sort of so super focused, right? Like the longer you spend time in science, the more you focus on something, and so you specialize and specialize and specialize. So basically what you do is narrowing down, and then also it has to be very correct. Everything has to be very correct. I mean, that's the idea of science. Like, it has to be like super precise, and you have to make sure that the data is correct and that the statistics are correct and everything. And would you say, both of you, that in a way maybe art is sort of the like the exact opposite, and that this is what balances you out, so that you have this creative opening up world in your free time?
Totally. Like some evenings I go home, and especially one day you have very bad results and you just want to paint, and you don't know why, you don't care for what, you just paint, and it's super nice. Like sometimes you get something nicer, something that you wanted to do from your science, but sometimes it's like, I want to do a flower, you know. I want to do something that relax me, and that, yeah, it's always super relaxing for your brain. Especially also, I remember sometimes it's a bit bad, but during some lectures in the school, you just paint and then you are super focused on what the professor is saying, more than if I try to listen all the time. So it really helps to balance this super precision and super.
That worked out for Alba. It wouldn't work out for me. I would miss the
in
whole
which
lecture.
sense?
I
Oh,
would
okay.
miss the whole lecture. Yeah, to me, like, I don't know that they, like, because I like to paint, it balances out this sort of very focused mindset that you say scientists are known for having. When I become too focused on a painting subject, you know, that I've painted maybe 10 birds in a row, I'm like, okay, Nico, enough. The same as when I'm studying for something, or I've been focused in one topic for a long time, I'm like, I really need to change. I need to do something else. And I feel that's something that is so important for scientists as well, because I feel there is so much value in learning at the system level. You know, now you're working with plankton pelagic communities, and in the end, the processes happening there are happening elsewhere, just maybe in a sort of different way or with different players. And I think creativity and new insights come from changing disciplines and saying, okay, what if what I learned in this system could be applied to, you know, the grasslands of the savannah or whatever? You know what I mean? And that's where you can be creative and new ideas can be put on the table. If you're always doing the same thing, you become stagnant. I feel my brain becomes stagnant. So at least that for me wouldn't work.
Yeah.
In
But that's
anything in my life. So I don't know if it's art and science for me, or if it's just a me thing that I'm that way. But yeah.
But it's funny because what you just said, you could compare completely into two different artistic careers, like the one that will always keep his own type of painting, that you will say, okay, this one is from this person, you just see it. And of course these people will have also a good career, and then there's the people that needs to keep changing every month or every year, because they need to do something new for many different reasons, either because they are bored and they need to create, they need to discover new things, or because the society is pushing them to do that. And if you compare also this into our little painting sessions, it's super interesting, because you can compare each painting as a little experiment, because sometimes, as I said, I go home, I paint something very fast and it's completely a disaster, and you just keep it, you remove it. So it's a kind of when you are trying to design an experiment, which nothing works, but at least it creates an idea. Okay, I would like to enhance this, I would like to do that. And it's true that sometimes when you really want to do something a bit more precise, you need to be focused. You cannot be anymore, oh, I'm painting, I'm leaving my mind. So it's when you really put all your little knowledge, and you know you have a specific time, you need good light, you need good table, and then you can do that painting. But sometimes you just paint in between as a, yeah.
And I wonder with
Test
these
experiment.
two modes of we can call them artists, we can call them scientists or people, also, like, to what extent fear, or let's say on one hand comfortability, and on the other hand fear of failure, can play a role into deciding to just stay in your field or in your style and not experimenting or not trying new things. Because to do new things, you need to think, you need to sort of integrate all the things that you've learned, take them somewhere else, and it requires an effort. And it can be fruitful or it can be a fail, and it will take work for sure. So in a way, it's easier to stay in your lane. It's more comfortable, more secure, maybe. You know that you're good at that, at studying plankton, or you're good at painting in a certain style, at painting fish. And that's why you don't want to step out of that comfort zone. But that's not what life's about. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So-
that's actually true. That's actually true. That's so clever. I actually, earlier on, when Alba said what she liked is that she shows people who have never painted before to just like let it go and really start painting and just go for it. And it actually works out well. Like, my first idea was, wow, that would be such a challenge for me to just, let go. Because I think that's the biggest challenge for many, many people, that they will not perform perfectly, but that they will make mistakes and that everyone will see it, right? So in a way, I like that Alba apparently brings the strength that people dare to be like that in the surrounding, this safety, basically.
Definitely. I totally agree.
Well, thanks to both of you for being here. It was super interesting to talk to you. And I really hope to see some more art of you in the future, and expositions, and maybe an atelier or whatever. And yeah, well, thank you. And
Thank you so
till the next
much.
time.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was super interesting, very fun to talk about that, because you get into new ideas you even don't know, just discussing this very cool topic. Thank you.